multimedia. Basically what we're going to talk about to start is the definition of multimedia, multimedia principles, and some design guidelines for multimedia development. Alright, so what is multimedia? Stop the presentation and take a minute just to think about what do you think the actual definition is. The definition is that multimedia is a combination of both words and pictures that support learning or support communication. So a combination. It's not just one form of media, it's multimedia, two forms. Forms of words such as text, narration, and graphics, images, icons. And I like to refer to this as verbal and nonverbal representations. Alright, so we have the definition of multimedia. So from that, we came up with this thing called the Multimedia Principle, where we started to test how people learn. And we talk about learning styles, like I'm a visual learner, or I'm a a kinesthetic learner, or I'm a auditory learner. But what we found out is that people actually learn better from a combination of words and pictures rather than just one of those alone. So if you're a visual learner, you'll actually learn better from a combination of words and pictures rather than just pictures alone. And that's why when I talked about learning styles, I said, they're not that applicable. It's more about the content. How do I teach this content rather than what is this person's learning style? So some of the theories behind multimedia learning, one is information processing, which basically says that we have three types of memory: initial memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. You've probably heard of short and long-term memory. Initial memory is when we first see something and our mind decides what do we do with it. Then we have short-term. Short-term memory can hold just a few things. It's said to hold about 7 units, plus or minus 2, depending on how motivated we are to learn them. Really, more recent research says that's more like 5 units. So, if we're talking about technology, I can probably hold quite a bit. But if we're talking about, say, like, English or some subject I'm not really interested in, I can probably hold a little less. And then we have long-term memory, which is said to be this place where we can hold an unlimited amount of information. Then we have something called cognitive load and dual coding, which I'm going to talk about on the next screen. But before I do, I'd like you to pause this and think about, what does the word cognitive mean? All right, so cognitive load and dual coding. So what cognitive means is it's what we're thinking in our mind. So cognitive load is how much can we think before our mind is overloaded. So if you look at the picture on the left and right here, you see cognitive load. You can see blue, green, basically the colors of the rainbow. And red is like warning, warning, warning. You're going to overflow. We're getting to the point where we can't hold anymore. So basically what dual coding says is that our memory is comprised of these two processing channels. Our short-term memory is comprised of a verbal channel, which processes text and words, and a nonverbal channel, which processes images, graphs, and icons. So basically the point of this multimedia theory and cognitive load is that we can, if you imagine these are glasses, we can fill this verbal channel up with so much water, if this was a glass, with so much water before it overflows, and the nonverbal before it overflows. So the point is that if I was just using one of these, like if I was just giving someone text, I'm only utilizing 1/2 of what they can process. Whereas if I'm giving verbal, they can process almost double that. So, why is this important? How does this apply to anything? Well, there are all these different principles that we know of, and I'm going to go through these kind of quickly in light of just not to make this a 20-minute video, because I know they get rather boring and it's already at 4 minutes. So there are these things called the multimedia theory. So first one is that we know that words and pictures are better than just words or pictures alone. So that's the first multimedia principle. Then we came up with all these different multimedia theories, and you can see them listed here. Alright, the first one is the split attention principle. Basically what that means is that learners shouldn't split their attention between representations, otherwise cognitive load is increased. What does that mean? Alright, basically what that means is, so take a look at this picture. This is a picture of the human heart, and here is a description of it. In order to understand this picture, we need to read the text. The problem is you're reading this text, and then you have to look up at the picture. Read the text, look up at the picture. It's something called representation holding. You're going back and forth. Just imagine if you could look at this picture and I could read the text to you and you never have to take your focus away from anything. Think of like refocusing your attention on something else. All right, redundancy principle. What this means is that presenting the same information 2 times actually interferes with learning, hurts it. So let's go back to this previous slide. It's actually better just to either have the text or have someone reading this text rather than have the text written here and have someone reading it at the same time. Because then people's concentration gets messed up and you actually increase cognitive load and decrease learning. So you either choose one or the other. For this text here, you're either going to have the text or you're going to have words. You pick one or the other. Coherence principle. Irrelevant information can decrease learning. What does that mean? If I'm talking about the human heart, but I don't care, I know the students already know the color of it, I know they know what it looks like, I'm specifically talking about the septum. Why do I need this picture on the right which shows the colors? Because you know what? The first thing I think of when I see these colors, I think, wow, that's cool, I see some blue. Oh, and I see the blues are a little different. And, you know, I'm looking at the shadowing here on the vessels and whatever. I'm now distracted from what I actually need to be learning about. Now, sure, if I'm teaching someone about the colors or whatever, the shape, then yeah, then I need to have that. But if I'm not teaching them that, that's not my goal, I don't have what's distracting. Think about PowerPoint presentations you guys have seen. How many presentations have you seen where like the theme is like, let's soar away to something, and every single slide is like a different type of airplane, you know, to go along with the theme, and every single slide, everyone's just waiting to see what the next airplane is, and I'm missing the whole presentation because I'm focused on what's the next airplane on the next slide. So think about that. Spatial and temporal contiguity, basically it means things need to be on the same screen. So like you wouldn't have a picture of the heart and then the description on the next page. You'd want to keep them on the same page. Signaling, very simple. Basically, it means like, you know, think about all your textbooks you read. They have like the highlighted keyword that most of you probably study for your tests and quizzes. So I have this highlighted keyword here, it's septum, because I'm talking about the septum. Interactivity effect, if you can, allowing learners to actually control the pace at which they go through instruction is much better than just forcing them to go through at a pace. So having, like, when you're developing something, next buttons, back buttons, allowing them to go back and review, that kind of thing. All right, and very quickly, we're also going to, in this, I want to just talk about storyboarding. So basically, what is a storyboard? A storyboard is like when you're developing, like think of like a movie. You see like they develop each scene in a picture. Basically, what you're doing is it's a quality check when you're developing something. So here's a sample storyboard. You can see that the screen would go here. You can see where there's a title, file name, some notes. Images, what do I have? So basically the point of this storyboard is that I could give this to a developer or a computer programmer and they could develop exactly what I'm asking them to. Here's a sample of what it could look like. If I was developing a heart module, I have some notes at the top, and you should stop here and just take a look at this because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the screen. But you should stop and take a look at how I have everything. Notice images. Here are the images here's the main image right here. There should be a back button here, a next button here. Here's what the script should say. Notes, someone should be reading this. Here's what the file name is going to be. This is what a storyboard looks like. And activity, what I'd like you guys to do, I'd like you to pause this, and right now, what I would like you to do is I would like you to go to the slide that is blank, and I'd like you don't have to turn this in or anything, but I'd like you to actually try to use one of these multimedia principles that I just went through, and develop a very quick storyboard. This PowerPoint presentation is in your lesson, so you should have it. I'd like you to open this up and try to develop a storyboard for some kind of multimedia content. You can do it on what your smartboard assignment is going to be, just as a sample. And one quick point to remember about these multimedia principles. Take them with a grain of salt. What does that mean? It means, well, you know what? Take that one where I don't want to have the text and audio at the same time. But let's say I know that some of my users might actually prefer the audio and some might prefer the text. If I can make an argument against one of the principles, then I should probably do what I believe I should do. You take them with a grain of salt. They're just best practices. They're just things to consider, design considerations. All right? Bye.